Welcome to Unnamed Podcast. I've not actually decided what to call this. On the line today, we've got Jocob. That's his full identity. From Canada. I'm going to speak to Jocob today about many things. We'll just have a conversation, see how it goes. And the reason I have him on the line is because he has a lot of experience with psychedelics and I believe maybe just drugs in general. But he also has, in your words, Jocob, if you wouldn't mind, what is your diagnosis, or do you have set in stone? Like, because last I remember, if I just jump right into it, I remember this is one point that I thought, this is when originally I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to speak to this guy because I remember you had experiences sober for the most part where you were having things of like you were speaking to the bugs, or like God was telling you to like eat the bugs or some like mad shit. So obviously this is some like, who knows, I don't know, I just want to hear what your side of the story. So what's your diagnoses, if you wouldn't mind?
Um, that was a great introduction, by the way.
Thank you. It was difficult.
Um, okay. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis, and I've also been diagnosed with, well, the psychosis part. It's drug-induced psychosis is the diagnosis.
Okay.
Um, I also have ADHD and generalized anxiety.
Alrighty, so in your experience, let's say with the drug-induced psychosis, because I have been a student of this myself in a way, because I found it very interesting, the connection between mystical, spiritual experience and what's deemed by Western culture as psychosis. And the reason why it's particularly interesting to me is because like if you take shamanic cultures and like Eastern spiritual traditions, they will take somebody of schizophrenic nature and integrate them as a healer in that society. They capitalize on the potential gift instead of calling people broken. Now, the question I have for you is, in your experience, did the psychosis begin after, well, drugs? Because they say it's drug-induced psychosis. Would you say yep, or do you think it's deeper than drugs?
Oh, I think it's way deeper than drugs. I think psychedelics are a gateway, but not like a gateway drug. They're just a straight up gateway to the other.
Yeah, psychedelics are pretty next level. So, because in my experience, the more I mess with psychedelics, the insanity clearly does manifest. Is that the case in your experience? The more you mess with them, you know.
I think I had to go through a journey in which I had to completely lose myself and trust myself to the other. And it manifested in me doing a lot of crazy things.
So, just to break the ice, as we're on the introduction, is there any off the top of your head like experiences of the same nature, such as God telling you to eat the bugs, if I remember correctly? Have you? There's a whole. You must have had a whole host of experiences of that nature. Can you relay any of the most profound or most bizarre?
Hmm. I'm gonna think on that for a second.
Take your time.
mostly revolves around synchronicity. Um, I I see the fundamental pattern, and I see it in crazy shit like my spit and like um body fluids, I guess, liquid. I see it all around me in bugs and flashing lights. I get
You say
lots
you
of
see
flashing.
patterns.
Yeah,
So what's the nature of these patterns? Is it like sacred geometry?
it's like fractal.
Yeah, fractal visual patterns. Is that permanent, which would be deemed probably HPPD, hallucination persistent perception disorder, I believe, something like that, where the psychedelic fractals remain.
I guess so.
I have that to an extent. It's not full blast, but so you said about the synchronicities. Is that only a visual phenomenon with uh, symmetrical geometry, or is it synchronicities in terms of metaphysical level where your whole life seems to be communicating some message to you or some weird shit? I've had that. I don't know if that's the
I
same, but
I live in that. I
yeah.
live. I,
So recently you said yeah, so you haven't been living on Earth. Is that correct?
oh yeah, a lot of off-planet work.
So how could what is that exactly? Like what if you just straight up said to a stranger like basically just that, how could you describe exactly like what do you mean by you haven't been on Earth? What is it?
I've been living in my imagination, or I've been fully immersed in my imagination. Um, and I'm building a machine of language.
Interesting. What's the machine of language? Because my language, psychedelics seem to be a tool for evolution of language, as Terence McKenna would also advocate. Is this tied into what you were saying of you were building a machine of language, or what do you mean?
You're right. um, but there's more. Uh,
What's the
I can't.
language? Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Well, what was he going to say?
I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, tell me about the bugs. Tell me about the universe telling you to eat the bugs. If you're cool with that.
yeah. Um, it happened while I was in a hospital in a psych ward.
Yeah.
Well, it happened on another occasion before I was in a psych ward, but I don't know. God told me in a flash of light to eat the bug, and in all honesty, I think it was to set me on the path to be in the psych ward, to learn more about what type of people are actually in there.
How was the experience in the psych ward?
Bleak and miserable, but amazingly magical.
Did they just have you sitting in a still room for the most part?
No, I was in a hospital bed for a lot of it, but that was by choice. There was a lot of places to like walk around.
So it
Well,
it's not a mental hospital, no?
no, it's like a regular hospital.
Oh, right, okay.
It's just a unit in the hospital devoted to mental health.
So was there any, like, was there a clear reason? Or, like, what was the reason, like, why you pursued eating? What bug was it?
It was just a little goldy bug. It was like a little beetle.
Hmm.
Um,
So are you, in your eyes, society, a Western society would deem you ill, as you are aware, as where they tried to put you, what people's views are on your views on how you live, I assume. I've had my fair share of that stuff, especially with the spiritual and psychedelic stuff, but the phenomena of society thinking that the schizophrenic is crazy, the schizophrenic normally defends his place in terms of you don't think that you're do you think that you're sick, or do you think it's society that's sick, or do you think it's both, or what do you think's going on there? Who's in the wrong, or is it society's just not built for people of your nature?
that's a good question. Um, I think I'm tapped into something. I know I'm tapped into something true. But I think there's a well, no, once you know, you know.
See,
But
I understand the
what
feeling of truth, especially on psychedelics, but yeah, sorry, go on.
um I think it's I don't know. In one way everything's perfect. In one way everything is just unfolding lawfully, even all the tragedy. But that's a hard view. But in another view, society is corrupt, and that's where I'll end it.
How old are you again, Jacob?
22.
So, when did you... Was this always... Did you always have a spiritual intuition, or was this always your nature, or was there a process of awakening or insanity, or how did it go down?
Curiosity first, into insanity, and then uh, slowly building myself back up through intuition.
So was this like an interest into spirituality and into enlightenment and insanity? Because I this is the same reason why, like I say, I research schizophrenia and psychosis, because I'm interested in the insanity experience, because that's some of the most, well, insane stuff there is to experience is pure insanity, and psychedelics are a good vehicle to get you there.
Mm, yeah, but psychedelics can help you. Psychedelics can help you. They're not just giving you insanity.
Yeah, of course, but you can. I mean, have you ever had what seems to be a psychotic break where you? I've been convinced that I've lost my mind a few times on
Mm.
mushrooms, especially.
I my early trips, one of if not my first shroom trip, I took 3.5 grams, um, and I lost it. I lost it. Um, I I almost jumped off my roof, and I was out on my roof in a blanket, naked, and I was like looking over the edge, and a thought caught me, and I decided not to jump.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So was this? Did you already have? Uh, like, how dire, if you want to call it that, was your mental state before the psychedelics, or like was this before? Because like, again with the question, like, do you think the psychedelics manifested your diagnosis?
Hmm. That's a really important question.
Yeah.
Um, no.
I believe you. I think it's deeper. I think it's underneath. I think the drugs, well, I don't know. I think they maybe can manifest it, but I don't think they cause it. But how do you feel? Why do you say no?
Because God told me.
The
Uh,
insanity. Sorry, say again.
no, 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 you carry on.
I was gonna say the predicament of being the one who is insane, because it's rare for a deeply spiritual person, and they're often deemed insane. But it's very difficult to be on the other end of that and look back at those who are sober in Western culture. They look at you as if you're insane, but it almost seems like it's so painfully obvious that that's not the case. I'm not saying it isn't necessarily the case, but I've been there, especially on psychedelic trips. It seems like there is truly an awake state and an asleep state. So, in your experience, have you ever had what you would define as an awakening, where you take psychedelics and you go, I'm awake? Or, surely you've heard, at least, of that concept.
Once, I believe. I think it was an 8-gram shroom trip.
Jesus.
Um, I felt like felt like Alan Watts was sitting within me.
Did you listen to his lecture by any chance while tripping?
No.
Oh, fair enough. Why Alan Watts in particular?
I listened to him a lot.
I've been listening to him a lot more recently. He's good, isn't he? He knows he knows the crack.
Yeah. He is the crack.
He's got very important concepts, especially if anybody watching is very interested in really the fundamentals of spirituality and awakening. I think Alan Watts is one of the best translators for that. So, do you have any just potentially some of your peak psychedelic experiences? Surely there's do you not have? I mean, that story about you like nearly jumping off the roof and that. I mean, how many times have you really like tripped? Have you tripped like an absurd amount of times?
Yeah, I would say it's absurd.
You also take LSD, if I'm correct. Do you test your blotter tabs?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Good to hear.
It's an Ehrlich reagent, I think.
Yeah, Ehrlich. That's correct. Nice. Ooh, what about like DMT?
I've smoked DMT, or I've baked DMT before.
Did it work?
I didn't blast off into another dimension, and I didn't have elves come, or entities. Well, I always have entities,
Really?
but yeah, I'm surrounded.
Wait, well, even when you're sober, there's entities.
Well, I would hope so, but I haven't been sober in a long while. Even when I've been sober for brief periods, like 2-3 days max, I still have entities, and I'm still seeing light.
What do you mean by seeing light?
I get like synchronistic, I guess it's like synesthetic reactions to sound. They condense as light.
So you see sound.
Yeah.
I've had that on psychedelics, I know that.
I live in that.
So, what are you constantly intoxicated on?
Cannabis, mainly.
Me also,
Oh, nice.
especially recently. But in my experience, cannabis does not have the tendency to reveal self-transforming machine elves.
No. Well, I'm not actually sure of the upper limits of cannabis's potential.
Yeah, you are right. Especially edibles, I heard, can really take you down the rabbit. I mean, I'm sure they can. I've had experiences. The first few times I smoked, I started teleporting around and shit. I didn't know where the fuck I was. I was dizzy for like 4 hours. It was horrible. It's at some skate park on 420. It's not good. So if you have the entities, if I'm right, when you're sober for the most part, or even if you're on, like, what do the entities reveal themselves as? Because as far as I'm aware, in the DMT state, I've never done it. The entities are, well, they're like real time information producing visually. They pour forth and transform like outwards and forwards in like a trans-dimensional object. That's the all like. But in your state, what is the entity? Does it look like a circle or a being, or what is it?
It manifests as a couple different things. It manifests as a sight sound. I notice it in like static and flickering lights.
What makes it an entity to you? What makes it clear that you would define this as an entity? Does it literally feel like a being outside of you, or are you sure you would define it as an entity, or what exactly is it that you see within static? Or so it sounds like a strange phenomenon that basically nobody has. Sounds hard to pinpoint.
Mm-hmm. Part of my insanity journey was like entity testing, I guess. I gave in to my intuition and I trusted blindly for a long time, and that was what made me do crazy shit like eat bugs and like lay on roads in traffic.
So would you deem your actions delusional in the past?
Delusional with good intention.
Yeah, I get you. Oh, it's difficult because I find psychedelics can be very enticing because of the supposed truths they reveal. So it's hard to get away from them because I've had awakenings that just solve all of my problems immediately, and they're so powerful and so bending that they're like enchanting. Do you agree?
Yeah, I feel like having all your problems solved is step one of living life properly, and we need to cultivate this enchantedness. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like that. I've had realizations on psychedelics that I don't believe I ever would have had sober. Um. So I guess what's the trajectory as far as you're aware for your future? Do you have any motivation or aspiration of some sort of spiritual thing, or maybe something podcast related, or what is it maybe you're trying to do, or are you just chilling? As far as I was aware, you mostly take plant drugs and listen to philosophy, which is not far from what I currently engage in mostly.
Well, my main motivation is actually music, believe it or not.
Music, interesting. Well, tell me about your what kind of music, in what sense is it? Is it for the public? You working on a project, or?
It's part of that machine I'm building in my head.
Is this the language machine?
Yeah. It's like a music machine.
I want to know more
Or
about this machine.
I built it up with intuitive movements in my own imagination. Oh my goodness. My cups just randomly fell.
Really?
Yeah, and it didn't seem so random.
Did it just leave? You didn't move the cup.
Nope.
Uh-oh. Looks like the universe is communicating a secret message.
Bing bong. Secret message.
Well, do you want to end it there if you like, and we can always do another one, or is there anything you want to say, or well, before if this is the end for now, I do want to ask you, do you have any advice for just psychedelics in general? Like, what do you think's maybe some of the most powerful lessons you've learned from psychedelics, if you can?
God's real.
Yeah. They do that.
There's a mystery happening all around you all the time, and you can see it if you just look.
I agree with that point, definitely. And this is what I can't take my eyes off this the subject of the nature of reality, is because it blows my mind way too much, so I basically cannot look away.
That's good to hear.
Well, I reckon we'll end it there for today, if that's cool, and we can always hop back on in the future if you're up for it.
Yeah, this was really awesome.
Yeah, I had a good time. I feel like it was good talking to you. Do you feel like, in a sense, well, I mean, I guess it depends. I don't know if you feel, of course, that you need help the way that society tells you, but do you feel that it helps talking about your experiences to try and understand them, having it in conversation, you know?
Yeah, amazingly so.
Well,
I've been solitary.
yeah, well, if you want to talk more in the future, I feel like this has been a very good introduction for. I mean, if you come back on here anyway, I feel like we've set a good premise, and in the future, if anybody wanted to contact you, if you was open to that, then let me know in the future, and I'll leave something in the description. Don't have to, of course, but yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, it was very good talking to you.
Thank you, Aaron. That was awesome.
Oh, you remember my name. Very great. Yep, that was awesome. I had a good time. Stay safe. That's it. Just stay safe. Stay happy. Keep smiling.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Alright. Well, I'll end the recording now anyway. Thanks for watching, guys.